The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, review.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling to the Max's Raw review for March 27th, 2017. And boy, this is the road to WrestleMania, and actually the week of WrestleMania, the ultimate thrill ride as they shove down your throat all during this episode of Raw. Just to let you guys know, if you want to find out all of the content we have to offer, make sure you go check out W2Mnet.com. That, of course, gives you all the content that we offer podcast-wise, as well as written content. If you haven't checked it out, you need to go do that now. I'm sure we'll be having a WrestleMania roundtable for you guys. So if you want to read all our different thoughts about what's going to be taking place at WrestleMania as well, you need to go check that website out. Also, don't forget to also go subscribe to Wrestling to the Max on whatever you listen to. Preferably, iTunes is great for that. Also, make sure you give us a rating. That'd help us out a lot. And go rate and review. That gives us just a little bit more exposure to people out there maybe don't know about our show. That just kind of, maybe a little favor if you all say it that way. Do us a little solid there, buddy. But anyway, I'm your host, Gary Vaughan. Of course, with me is Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And boy, Paul, this is the last Raw before WrestleMania. I think I'm pretty excited about talking about it. I know we'll be getting into more about WrestleMania on our other podcast, which is Wrestling to the Max, and it'll be episode 240 this week. But besides that, this Monday Night Raw gave us a lot of stuff leading into this WrestleMania 33. So let's go ahead and jump into it head first, man.
Gary, have you ever been so hard sold on something in your life and then 3 hours? I felt like it was on a used car lot.
You're right. I felt the same way. I kept getting raked over the coals. Like I said, man, ultimate thrill ride. I'm going to be saying that in my sleep tonight. I'm freaking everybody said it on the show. Really, honestly, I'm going to be at work tomorrow and being like, hey, I think we need to get this done on the ultimate thrill ride. And, it's good. They're like, what the? So, yeah, you're right, Paul. Totally. This was a hard sell all the way through.
Gary, we're at work. What's so ultimate about this thrill ride here?
Yeah. I forgot I was supposed to leave that at home, aren't I? Keep forgetting that. I know, man. It's ridiculous, but hey, this is what WWE does well, right? Their whole job is to sell you on something, and they do a great job on merchandise and all that stuff. But WrestleMania is their big dog, and hey, I have to say, if I was a casual viewer, didn't know much about what was going on in the world of wrestling, especially just in WWE alone, I think I'd be a little more intrigued by all the stuff they announced tonight. There's so much stuff they announced tonight, even just the special and guest ring announcers.
And it's like, for me, I'm really curious if they're going to go this hard tomorrow on SmackDown, because I think they know, and we know, that Raw caters to a much larger audience than just the hardcores or your actual wrestling fans or whatever else. There's a lot of casual people coming in, and maybe they are interested that WrestleMania is this Sunday and they're tuning in and all these other things. So I agree with you. I think they did well on that. It's just at times, can we move on to the next segment and stop selling me? I get it, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I know, right? Especially if you have the network. That's one thing I'll add to this, too, is sometimes you feel like, I need to go order the network because the way they sell that, and then, oh, crap, I already have that. That's right. It already comes out of my account every month, So it's just they can consistently push things at you this entire show. That's what they've been trying to do, but this one was the biggest sell that they've ever done, which, once again, you got to give them credit. It's what they had to do, what they needed to do, and they got it done. It's just it's kind of, I don't know, in your face the entire time.
In your face and a little overboard, much like a used car salesman, as I said earlier. I want to talk about a lot of different things, because they did the hard sell for a lot of matches, too, and some of these desperately needed it. And others I was already sold on, and I think they might have heightened a little bit of some and done nothing for me otherwise. But the thing I think they did, well, maybe not the best with, but very well with, is this opening segment and the subsequent match here between Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, Nia Jax, which is, of course, your Fatal 4-Way for the Raw Women's Championship this Sunday. Bayley gets a promo and talks about how much she loves WrestleMania, all of her memories with the show, chipping in with her friends to buy WrestleMania, various WrestleMania moments. And this, I want to talk about her part the most, because this is the most relatable I think Bayley has ever been on the main roster, because not only does, obviously this coming from a woman's perspective, I'm sure help at least some women try to connect with this, but there are so many people and wrestling fans out there who have been in that exact situation of coming together, buying the show. I know you and me have been there on more than at least 3 or 4 occasions, and I just felt like this is just so insanely relatable. How can you not be behind Bayley at this moment? And then here comes Charlotte, who's ready to rain on that parade, calls her a paper champion, reminds her and tells her that Sasha has pretty much been using you the entire time to get at me and everybody else around here. Charlotte continues all that, which leads Sasha to come out and says, really, Bayley's been doing this on her own. I've just sort of been in her corner. And then Nia Jax comes out and pretty much calls them all little girls, talks about how they've only been trading the championship around because she hasn't had her shot yet, and that's going to change this Sunday when the championship finds its permanent home around her waist when she wins. We get a huge brawl. It leads into a tag match with Bayley and Sasha taking on Charlotte and Nia Jax. Gets about 15 minutes, give or take. Sasha ends up taking out Jax. Bayley gets the big Bayley to belly on Charlotte to get a much-needed win. She looks strong. I think Banks, they tease a lot of the heel stuff with her here. And really, overall, I thought this was extremely, extremely well done and gave this match a much-needed boost. I don't know if it's my favorite on the card or anything like that, but it's certainly something I'm much more interested in watching now.
My first question to you is, how did you feel about the placement of this? Being the first thing that they had on Monday Night Raw, especially leading into WrestleMania, how did you feel about them being the first thing you saw?
I think this is a solid move on their part because, one, it continues to at least play into the fact that they do care. They gave these girls 30 minutes here at the beginning of the show, and this might be a double-edged sword because I know not everybody is into women's wrestling. And I know everybody hasn't been a fan of the way that they're going about doing this whole program here on Raw. But I thought this was gutsy. I thought it worked because it was two very strong segments. And personally, I was a fan of it. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who would disagree with me. But I think throwing this right at you at the beginning at least gave you something different, and it gave you a much needed reason to get invested.
Yeah, I agree with that. And here's the thing. I think it's really important from my point of view looking at this for the fact that this division has been really kind of flailing around. They've sometimes hit you with some things that are positive, and then a lot of times you're confused. And then sometimes they hit low marks where you're just like, good God, that was dumb, or who cares? And they got rid of, that whole flailing around factor and actually started in taking precise punches at you. This is our point. This is exactly what each of these 4 competitors have to offer, what they want, what they're about, and it wasn't stupid. It wasn't things that were just there to, let's fill some time. Let's just have something, goofy, or, let's make one of them look goofy so the other one looks strong. I think that's not the case here. You got your women's world champion in Bayley looking very positive. I will say that I was a little surprised that Philly didn't get a little hotter. I feel like Philadelphia really kind of undersold her in a way. I thought they would be a lot stronger being a smarky crowd. I thought they were going to explode. They didn't. They kind of Yeah, good, yay. So I was kind of disappointed in that. But outside of that, I think, when she won the match, they really did pop. They gave her that love that she needed. And I think that also propels her in the limelight when it comes to people that are not a part of that group, that don't, usually see her in that light. So that's all positive for Bayley. And the rest of the three, Charlotte's, fine, all that. She does a great job on the mic and all the stuff we always compliment her on. I think everybody involved got a good chance to look good here. And going into WrestleMania, you do care. I think everything you just said, Paul, it makes a lot of sense for this, because now I think people can look at this on an elevated level. Where before, and if you listen to any of our Raw reviews prior to this episode, you're going to hear us talking, especially me, talk about how this is just a disappointment, how bored I am at times with it. So for me personally, they took this in the right direction. It was the first thing you saw. So if you were uninterested at all, and hopefully you stay tuned in, now you care. So I think that's all positive and in a good direction.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and listen to our shows, first of all, thank you, and bravo to you. Secondly, Gary's right. We're very, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but we go as back and forth with this division as much as I think the writers do, because there are a lot of times where they present you with a lot of silly things that really seem to set the division back, and then you get segments like this, or matches, or something that really makes it feel like they do care. And despite all the other sort of surrounding curriculars around this, these are the four women they've invested in this division. After tonight, it makes total sense why they're all there. Getting to this point, I don't think you could say that, but I think after tonight, it's a very clear picture of why they're all here.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. And, at least that gives me a lot more reason to watch the actual match, because I was so afraid, Paul, going into this, be the one of the matches I was going to be like, you know what? This is 4 hours long. I can step away for a few minutes,
Right.
And now I don't feel like that's going to happen during this match. I feel like they gave me a reason to stay in my seat on Sunday. So that's all positive in that direction for this division.
I couldn't agree with you more there, because I think both women's matches were very ho-hum feeling, and at least for Raw tonight, I think they changed perceptions on that. Maybe not a lot, because I'm sure there are people out there with longer memories and are more unwilling to give them a pass here or there than we are. But I can't. I think you nailed it right there. So
yeah, it's SmackDown. Do the same, please, because right now, what you got going over there with that, everyone has an opportunity for the title, the women's title. I'm still terrified of that one. They better fix that tomorrow. Make it actually compelling.
Yeah, I not to get too far off topic, because we're gonna do SmackDown tomorrow after it airs. But when you look at the two different matches, the way that they went about it on SmackDown makes sense in the light that they have all those feuds over there that continually cross and interchange with each other, and everybody is doing something, and they all feel like they could sort of rightfully contend, right? And them opening it up to all these different things obviously allows for some surprises, which I think is cool. And obviously that's something that they're not doing here on Raw, because they're very concentrated on the, I mean, you could say 4 storylines they have going here with everybody sort of crossing each other. But over there, it's a very messy picture, and one that isn't as clear and concise as I feel this is now walking away from this Raw. Obviously, they have an extra show in the bank than SmackDown does as of this current podcast, but I can't agree with you more either. SmackDown really needs to clear the picture, and I'm not saying they need to dedicate an hour to it tomorrow, but another 30 minutes I think would go a long way.
Yeah, we're on the same page there, so we'll see. We'll be hearing about that tomorrow.
Let's move. I want to talk about something that did absolutely zero for me, and that's the main event segment with Brock Lesnar and Goldberg going face to face. Heyman comes out in Philadelphia, gives you the hard sell, the big speech, and I think he's his usual Heyman self. But Paul Heyman in Philadelphia completely fails to get people on Lesnar's side, and maybe it's just because there are a lot of people out there who are so 50-50 on this that they either love Lesnar or they don't, which I think has been him the entire time he's been here with this run, or they're just so behind Goldberg as he looks continuously unstoppable every time you see him in the ring, except for brief hiccups here and there. Basically, Heyman calls Goldberg, he puts him over, essentially. He's the man. He's a huge superhero. He did something not even Sting could do and won the Universal title. All these different things. But when it comes to him against Brock Lesnar's the beast. He can't stand up against Suplex City. He can't survive the F5. All these other things. Goldberg makes his big entrance, comes out, says that, nobody here wants to see him talk anymore. They want to see him fight. Goldberg walks down the ramp and very casually spears Lesnar, who completely oversells it. I rolled around laughing for at least a good 2 minutes. Goldberg poses to close out the show. Gary, I don't care. I really don't.
No, that's completely sad. That really is terrible to hear, because this is your main event. This is WrestleMania 33, the last thing you're going to see on the network for WrestleMania 33. This is the last match, unless they have some kind of surprise that blows us out of the water, that makes us be like, wow, that was amazing. And that's what's terrifying here. They did a lot of things on this we'll talk about that were maybe in a good direction. This is not one of them at all. And I want to start off by talking about Paul Heyman. You brought him up, and Philadelphia and him have been together for quite a long time. I mean, ECW, go all the way back then, and people, did all the ECW chants in the back of the day, and I don't even know if I heard an ECW chant in this episode of Raw, which is kind of normal because he's kind of gotten away from it. But I'm just saying, they were not so hot when it came to him either. And this is a guy that's been around that. He's almost a hometown guy for Philadelphia. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman have been so ho-hum in this run with Goldberg. I usually love Paul Heyman, and I really don't hate him. I don't think he did anything wrong with this. I just don't know that Paul Heyman found anything to add.
Right.
To what there's nothing new, nothing special. He's brought no new spice to make us be like, oh man, that guy, he just sells it. I mean, there's nothing he can't sell. And this right now, going back to your car salesman thing, Paul, this feels like the car salesman that I've seen 6 or 7 times before, and he still can't sell me that car. I still have not been persuaded to purchase it, because he just keeps telling me the same thing. This is a sticker price. These are the same leather seats. This is the same stereo system that you heard in this car. It's the same mileage. That does nothing for me. Give me something that they haven't heard about, man. Tell me what extended, warranty that I can get if I purchase this car. Things like that. And I think that they really have done nothing. And the other thing that has soured me, and it has everything to do with Bill Goldberg has been given everything, the whole kit and caboodle. And Brock Lesnar's got very little out of this. And some would say, well, it's because Goldberg is on his last run probably, and, he needs all that. And don't give me that. Right. The reason I say that is because Brock Lesnar is a part-timer too. This is not a full-time guy. This is not a guy we're going to see after WrestleMania a full-time schedule. No, he's just as important as Goldberg, and that is about 50-50. Well, they're definitely not giving him that in this process. He looks very boring going into this matchup. I think what they're trying to do is get him to WrestleMania and make that picture change. But my God, you got to make people want to watch WrestleMania to see that change. Mm-hmm. And they've done nothing with it. I don't know, Paul. This whole thing was one spear, and then Lesnar can't stand up, and all this. It just drives me up the wall. This is what should have happened here, and I'm going to fantasy book really quickly. What should have happened here is, sure, do your little spear thing on the ramp. He's down. Make Goldberg celebrate like he's the best thing in the world, and then you have, guess what? Either Paul Heyman do something to trip up Goldberg, or you have Brock Lesnar turn him around and F5. That way both guys walk out with a finish. Both guys walk out with saying, hey, we both have an opportunity here. Right now going into this, I think it's 1-7 in matchups between these guys. I don't know the actual count, but that's what it feels like. 1-7. Brock has got 1, Goldberg 7. This is, it just bugs me, Paul.
You're not far off from the truth there. The only segment Brock has gotten since they've announced this match to look strong is last week, or the last time these two were in the ring. So it wasn't last week, I think it was the week before, when he got the big F5 and Goldberg was pretty much just left out. And to Heyman's credit here, I don't want to undersell it, because I thought he did a very good job, at least as far as trying to hard sell you. He was very impassioned. He was funny. He gave you everything that Paul Heyman usually gives you, but you are right in the fact that he doesn't give you anything new, because it's the same shtick we've heard since their last match at Survivor Series back in November, and nothing has really changed in this feud other than Brock is looking to get his win back, and Goldberg now has a shiny championship to play around with. That's really the only difference, and for me, whether Goldberg comes back or not is secondary to really what they need to do, and that's if you want to have Brock Lesnar as the guy again, which I'm still leaning towards it is. You have very little faith to think that he's going to, just with how dominant Goldberg's looked from week to week outside of the one time, and I think when you look at the other side of the coin of who's going to be here longer, I mean, you have Brock for a long time. I don't understand why you wouldn't at least give him a little more. And I'm with you, maybe 50-50 this to where you have a big brawl or something, but that's not been what this has been about. It's been big moves, guy goes down, other guy wins. And that is what makes me not care about this at all, because when we come to WrestleMania, there's no way this goes longer than 5 minutes. And if we get more than 10 moves out of this, I'll be shocked. And if that's how you send your crowd home, I think that is a huge, huge mistake, because that's old hat at this point. You did it at Survivor Series. You already shocked the world once. It's not going to be surprising again, even if Brock Lesnar is the guy walking away with the championship at the end of the night. So I would put Wyatt and Orton on last if it were me, not only because it has the story, but because you're going to have the traditional WrestleMania, if you can call Orton a babyface at this point, going over. And then that's not for sure either. That's just what I think is going to happen. But give me your thoughts on that, because like I said, I still don't care about this. I'm sure there are tons of people out there who do. But is this really what you want to see last at WrestleMania?
To be honest with you, I really don't think I do. But I understand where they're coming from on this, because I don't think that they feel like. Really, it's Bray Wyatt. They don't feel like Bray Wyatt deserves that main event spot yet. I don't think that they feel like he's a big enough draw. Randy Orton's a different story. I think they're all behind Randy Orton. I think they feel like Randy Orton can take them to the moon and back. Mm-hmm. But it's really about Bray Wyatt. I think he's the X factor here. Why would they choose the lesser matchup? Well, the lesser matchup has the biggest names. Brock Lesnar, UFC guy. A guy from former WWE, WWF, what do you want to say back in the day, coming, of course, now still a big name, a big, huge name. And Bill Goldberg is still a huge name. So I think it's all about that popular factor rather than the actual good match factor, if I could say it that way. And I'm underselling what these two guys can do. I don't think they're going to have the best match of the night for sure. But, I mean, Brock and Goldberg could surprise us. I don't want to undersell it before we get there, because I kind of feel like it's kind of a jerk thing to do. Sure, they didn't do a good job last time they had a matchup, but they're older. They may be wiser. They may actually do something that surprises us. But still, I don't believe it's going to be any better than Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. I'll tell you that for sure. So I would rather see that as main event, to be honest with you. But I understand where they're coming from. I totally get it. But no, I don't. I don't think it really deserves that top spot. Not how they've ran it into the ground by not allowing, Brock Lesnar to look good at all in this entire feud. If this is any other feud, Paul, on the card, you know how bored we would be with it? Do you know how much we would give it hate? Like, even more than we're giving it now. We would be just trashing it. It's kind of like the way we've been trashing the tag team division on Raw. How we've said how boring that has been. or at least on
Right.
my end. I know I trash it. Maybe not as you so much, but I'm with you on that. This may not be the most deserving main event for the entire night. I just don't think it's the last thing we want to see in front of our face. The only way, Paul, I'm saying it right now before we do our actual predictions this coming Thursday, the only way that they're ever going to sell me on this and it making sense is if Brock Lesnar is holding Bill Goldberg's bloody face after he beats him.
I've tempered my expectations for WrestleMania a lot in the past years because it's not ever so much about matches anymore, or even really who wins or what or anything like that. It's about the event. It's about everything that surrounds it. Is what makes it so cool nowadays. And for me, looking at that, even all that considered, your main event is what people are going to walk out of there talking about. It's going to be the big deal. And I just don't see them making people walk away from WrestleMania feeling all jazzed with Brock Lesnar being the guy to hold the belt up afterwards. After whatever him and Goldberg are going to do. And I'm not saying this was ever going to have a chance in hell of being match of the night, or even close, right? Because their abilities and what they want to do with them just don't allow for that. And the story that they told doesn't allow for that. It's quick, it's brutal, it's over. I think it makes a perfect co-main event. It's still your two big names, all that good stuff. And I obviously, the way that they planned WrestleMania cards out with two big championship matches on it, as far as top of the brand representation, they spaced them out. So much so that they've even gone opener and closer before. But, boy, it doesn't sit well with me that if this is going to go on last.
And that's from our perspective. Now, fans out there,
Right,
probably want to see Bill Goldberg win this match more than anything, and probably are excited and hope that he walks out of WrestleMania the Universal Champion. And I could understand that. I mean, I was a huge Bill Goldberg fan. I still kind of am in a way. I like the guy. The character. I'm not a big fan of Bill Goldberg the man, but I'm a big fan of the character. And I think that, it would be kind of fun just because of old nostalgia. But he can't walk out of this entire weekend with that title. It'll be at the Raw after. They'd have to have another match if Goldberg was to walk out. And just to please the crowd. That would be the only way they would do it, just to please the crowd, and then the next night have a title match. Boom, Brock wins. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're right that they want to sell the crowd, they want to get the crowd excited, and then walk out happy. But I mean, heck, I remember walking out of WrestleMania 32 with Roman Reigns' music playing. So I don't know, I was so happy.
I was very meh, but it fits into the WrestleMania storyline of the babyface overcoming all the odds and everything, right? So
yeah, good point.
Is, I mean, it's just typical WrestleMania endings and whatnot. But I want to. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say before we get out of this, I just want to say there is a quote I saw from Bill Goldberg just to kind of lead towards my excitement of there could be a bloodbath. Goldberg did say, quote, "I think this could be a bloodfest." So just that's a precursor to me hoping that's what happens.
I got a lot of ways to go here, but seeing as you talked about the tag division in that last segment, we'll talk about that. And so Anderson and Gallows were scheduled to face Enzo and Big Cass tonight. Anderson and Gallows sort of mock Enzo and Cass and promise that they're going to retain the championships. We get a segment with Sheamus and Cesaro saying that they're not going to let Mick Foley down, and seeing as he believed in them and all this stuff. Anderson and Gallows attack them and lay him out with a ladder. And then as the scheduled tag team match is about to take place, Enzo and Cass come out and do their stick and make fun of Allen Iverson's practice speech and all that good stuff, which is pretty funny, admittedly. And then Sheamus and Cesaro come down and attack them with a ladder. Anderson and Gallows, and Enzo and Cass, and we get this huge brawl. If this is turning into a ladder match, then sort of whatever. But does this do anything at all for you? Because so far it's still thrown together mess, and tossing a ladder in it on the last week, I don't think really does anything other than get people ready for a spot fest, which I think might be the only way the writers thought they could salvage any sort of crowd reaction from this match.
Yeah, my reaction to that, Paul, is I got 4 words for you. Too little, too late.
Mm.
And I think that's something, sadly, we kind of say quite a bit at times. But I think it is. Now, do I disapprove of anything they did tonight? Not at all. In fact, I kind of like what they did with Cesaro and Sheamus. May not have been a lot. I kind of like their reasoning, what they were behind. Of course, that's kind of the super baby face thing. Oh, Mick Foley, we're doing it to make him proud. All that good gee golly whiz stuff, which is good. I mean, I love both. I really love Cesaro. Sheamus is okay. And then you go on to what you get the chance to see, and the jokes and stuff with Big Kaz and Enzo, of course. That was good too. I can't lie. I was actually entertained by that. I wasn't kind of like, okay, let's get through this, move on. It was kind of a funny little joke, so I appreciated that. And what I did love is Gallows and Anderson, your champions, looking like champions. And actually making me think, guys, you're starting to, at least on this episode of Raw, you're looking like you're the Revival. You're coming in and there, you're taking care of business. Even if it's the wrong way to do it, you look strong, and that's all that matters to me. I feel like you guys were an opposing force. I appreciate that. Now I feel like, man, you guys actually have a chance to win. Have they done that prior to this? No. They've been involved in other things. They've done things that are just kind of, so I just don't know it's enough. I mean, I'm completely happy if they throw a ladder in this match and make it that, a ladder match. I think it would actually help this tag match, because otherwise my interest level for this match going into WrestleMania is not very high. And it's not to really crap on any of these wrestlers. I just think that they've booked this completely wrong going into the biggest show of the year. I kind of felt like we've been on a playing field of ho-hum for too long. And that is not good. That is not what you want people to think of your tag division. I hope that match is really great. I think throwing a ladder in it would really, really help. I really, really do. They did a great job, at least, getting you kind of excited about something with a tag division. But I'm scared that it's too little too late.
I agree with you on the too little too late part. This has been a thrown together mess for a long time. And that has a lot to do with the lack of them really trying to build up anybody behind the New Day, who just dominated for so long that it became about strictly what the New Day was doing, their funny segments, their matches, making them look great, all this stuff, which was the right move at the time because there was nobody close to touching them any time, I would say, last year in the tag division as far as popularity goes. But then you start, you have Enzo and Cass who have I think done their fair share to get themselves over. You have Sheamus and Cesaro, 2 terrific workers, sort of paired up against each other's wishes, and then suddenly making a go of it. And then you have Anderson and Gallows, who were mistreated for so long, finally get the big win, and still don't feel like they've really earned the belts. And I will say, a ladder match makes this interesting, because each of these teams brings something different to the table. Obviously, Anderson and Gallows are big punishers. Enzo and Cass are great because they're 2 sides of the same coin, as far as Cass being the wrestler, Enzo being the mouthpiece, and that's what makes them so great together. And then Sheamus and Cesaro, like I said, they're just 2 dynamite workers. And we've seen at least what Sheamus and Cesaro can do in ladder matches before because of Money in the Bank or whatever other matches they've been involved in. That being said, this still very much falls on the half of the WrestleMania card that I could care less about. And I don't know if a ladder match really changes my perception of that. I mean, it'll be a fine match no matter what they do, right? I mean, it'll get time, maybe not a lot, but it'll get time to do something. And whether people care about it or not, I think you'll have more people care if there's a ladder involved. I just don't know if that works for me personally.
Yeah, I think really why it works is because it's an equalizer for me. And what I mean by that is they don't want to make Gallows and Anderson look like they're the best tag team. They don't. That's not been their prerogative the entire time that these guys have been involved in WWE. So I think that ladder gives Gallows and Anderson a cheap way out of doing some good things for themselves. That way the WB can say, well, look, I mean, Enzo and Kaz were the good guys, and they didn't have to use any ladder. They just, did their hard work and all that. And that's great, and I understand that. But it's an equalizer for two guys who honestly I think don't need it, but that's what they're going to do. And I think also it's a stipulation on a card that doesn't have, I can't think right now if they have any tables matches. They have a Rumble on the card. They have now you have I think you have an elimination match in there somewhere. But I think besides that, this is one of the stipulations that always do a good a deed for WrestleMania. Any kind of time you have a ladder match on WrestleMania, it usually ends up being pretty darn good. So I think that's going to help at least these guys involved in this match.
I agree with you there. Like I said, I think it will help people care more. I just don't know if it's enough for me personally. But
I get you.
Yeah, and then let's talk about something else that I think I still don't care much about. Although I will say what they did tonight, I think was very well done. Undertaker technically opens the show where he's out in the graveyard digging graves. We get some more of that throughout the evening up to their segment, as well as Roman Reigns saying that he doesn't really care about the mind games and everything that is the whole aura of The Undertaker. He's only here for the big fight. And then they finally get to the segment with Reigns coming out, reminding us that he's won the Royal Rumble in Philly before. He's headlined WrestleMania twice. He is as good and as big as he pretty much says he is. And he doesn't care who The Undertaker has beaten, whether it's John Cena, whether it's, whoever. His whole laundry list of people he's beaten at WrestleMania and just in his career. And he doesn't care who you are as far as the star goes, whether you're Cena or Taker or Lesnar or whoever else. The WWE is his house now. It's his yard. And, of course, you can't say that without The Undertaker getting pissed and coming out. He does a promo from the graveyard saying that, the ring is still my yard. This is still my place. There's a special place in hell for you. All the good, Roman or Undertaker stuff that he likes to bring to promos and stuff like that. Then Taker sort of gives us the Thunder and Lightning show to end, and Reigns looks completely unfazed throughout all of this. And I'll say this worked out very well because Roman Reigns, WWE knew he was never going to get cheered during this, and they've made him practically uncheerable in all this because he doesn't care at all about anything other than proving himself. And if they want to do a heel turn after this, it's right there on the table for him. Although I doubt they're going to do that if they're still talking about doing him and Brock Lesnar for a year. But The Undertaker gets in his usual stuff. I think Roman Reigns' character work in this was much more interesting than I don't want to say I've ever been in, but certainly in the last 5 months. What did you think about all this? Do you care about this match at all? How much do you really like Roman Reigns' verbiage here?
I want to start off by saying the reason these two guys are even in this feud, part of it is because Roman Reigns eliminated Undertaker from the Royal Rumble, right? Mm-hmm. And that wasn't really the complete part of that, though. Really, this was about the whole, this is my yard. Right. And of course, that's the Undertaker's saying, you're not supposed to take the Undertaker stuff. But the other thing that makes me concerned and also intrigued is he steals Paige's catchphrase, and this is my house now. So makes you wonder, is Paige going to come up from the grave and pull him down? So I'm just kidding, but I just thought it was funny. He's using her catchphrase now. This is my house now. But I think, really honestly, I can't say that this did anything super spectacular for me. I love the video package. I do. I think it's cool because it's classic Undertaker, right? It's that whole, oh my God, Roman's name's on a tombstone. It's Taker looking as good as he ever does. If this was a movie, mm-hmm. I'd be really interested because the video package is great. Love it. I'm not sold completely on this whole creep factor, though. Because once you just said it, Undertaker is Undertaker. You can't take anything away from him. But really, Roman Reigns is unfazed by any of this. It's like, when you walk into a haunted house and you're too cool for school and you're not going to be scared. You just walk in there like, I'm big and bad. I know you got a chainsaw. It's not real. Just kind of, blow them through it. Not even worried about anything. It takes all the fun out of it, right? That's kind of the way I feel about this. Not that I want Roman Reigns to be a bumbling fool and acting like Scooby-Doo and terrified. It's not about that. I just wish in a way we'd see more emotion when it comes to Roman Reigns being like, oh crap, what did I just step into? I thought I was tough. I thought I was the big dog, but maybe I'm not. I wish I would have saw a little bit of that. Just a hint of it. Mm-hmm. Because the way he is here, I feel like I'm watching Undertaker versus RoboCop. It's just...
I'd watch that movie, by the way.
I know, right? That would be an amazing movie. I mean, WCW brought, RoboCop. Got to give them credit for that, but not WWE. They're not going to do that. But this is as close as you're going to get. And I just love the fact that, Undertaker still does his thing, but it's the same point of it's lessened because of the fact that you have just Roman Reigns standing there looking at him, and then the lights go out, lightning show, we're done. Come check us out Sunday. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just don't think it did anything for me. It just really didn't. It hasn't changed my idea. Hasn't changed my perspective. Anything I think about this match overall. And it also kind of screams to me a little bit, and this is just because I pay attention to a lot of wrestling, so forgive me if you're, casual watcher and you're like, why is he saying this? But it also makes me concerned on the physicality part because they had Undertaker have no physical interaction with Roman Reigns, so that makes me kind of a little bit nervous, like they can't touch each other till WrestleMania in case something happens to Undertaker, because he is older now and he can't do as much as he used to. So right. I do want to watch the match. I don't want anybody to think I'm crapping on it. I'm just saying from my perspective, this really didn't blow me out of the water. It was fine. It's normal Undertaker gimmick versus a guy that, stands there and is supposed to be too cool for school.
Right. I want to say this. I'm not interested in the match now because I think it'll be a bad match. I actually think it has the potential to surprise. The Undertaker can still go, and a lot of the heat from this, for me, comes from the fact that they haven't really touched each other, I think, since the Royal Rumble. Other than just having stare downs and whatever else, and having, Braun do the work or something like that. If I'm remembering correctly, some of these Raws are a blur for me. And all these things, but, the feud itself has done very little for me. Roman Reigns continue, you obviously, he is the guy that they want at the top of the card, all that stuff. Undertaker has the potential to at least pull something decent from him at WrestleMania. And what they want is for him to be the two. And it makes so much sense for him to be the two if what they have planned going forward is what they want to do. And that's that year-long feud I mentioned between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns over the Universal title. Especially if you can keep Goldberg for that too, I think it becomes much more interesting. But there's still not a lot of sizzle to this match that makes me so hyped for this show that I have to watch it. Like, I understand it's two big names, and then the WWE, obviously Undertaker is one of the biggest characters they've ever had. Roman Reigns is the guy for them right now. And from that perspective, it feels big, but I don't, much like Goldberg and Lesnar, I don't care. I really don't.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge problem. That really, really is. And I'll say it this way. If people are hating on this because it is Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker, especially for the fact that this is probably Undertaker's last opportunity to actually wrestle at a WrestleMania, understand that really maybe, and I'm kind of feeling weird that I'm saying this, but Roman Reigns is probably one of the safest guys for Undertaker to face. Not because of that he's so talented and he's been wrestling for a long time, because most of his offense is ground-based.
Right.
And it's not grappling, but a lot of it's striking based, from fists, from kicks, things like that. He's not doing, things off the top rope. He's not doing all, jumping off the ropes, anything like that. So this gives Undertaker an opportunity to have a good match with him if they can or are able to do so. So that's something positive I'm taking away from this. But besides that, Paul, you're completely right. There's nothing built here to make you go, wow, I can't wait to watch that. I'm still really not sold myself. I'm lacking the excitement.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's talk about the cruiserweights here, because I feel like they're getting a little bit of the shaft here. It's official that Neville's and Aries for the Cruiserweight Championship is going to be on the pre-show. I don't know if that should shock a lot of people, but I'm a little miffed about it because it feels like they're already backpedaling on the division doing that. Neville comes out for commentary for Austin Aries' match with Noam Dar. Aries wins in about 8 minutes with the last chancery. Usual Cruiserweight stuff here, all that. Later on in the evening, Neville has a match with Jagger, which he also wins by submission, which I think is a very interesting note. Better, I think, than the Aries match. And then afterwards, Aries sort of has one of those special promos with the New Day. They let him shake his hips. The New Day picks him to win. Neville doesn't look pleased by all of the shenanigans because, of course, he's king of the cruiserweights and he's this big, serious, badass guy. Does the build do anything more for me here? Because really, both guys just look strong going into the title match. And for a division based around wrestling, or what's supposed to be based around wrestling, I think that's fine. Does the pre-show placement bug you too?
It definitely does. I hate to say it in a way like it's a slap in the face. Maybe it's not a slap in the face because really the cruiserweights are not, they're not tenured here, if I could say it that way. I mean, they're very short-lived so far. But I feel like, if you're wanting to present them to people and you want people to care about them, well, put them on the main show. Being on the pre-show does nothing for anyone, and we all know WrestleMania. Paul, you've been to many WrestleManias. I've been to one. But, I mean, for all of you that have not been to WrestleMania, understand there are long lines. People take a minute to get inside the building. So those matches on the pre-show are not always the most piped. They're also not the most, overexposed. They kind of get underwhelmed, and people kind of halfway pay attention to them compared to everything on the card. That's a shame because let me tell you this is going to probably be one of the best matches in this show. I really feel that way. I think that Neville and Austin Aries are going to have an excellent match. And honestly, that's what sells me on this match overall. They both look good. They both did a great job in their respective matches on this episode of Raw. I think Austin Aries kind of got on easy street here because he faced Noam Dar, which is not saying Noam Dar sucks. I'm just saying they made him look a lot better in that match. Neville faced Jack Gallagher, who's a huge baby face for the cruiserweights. So, of course, Gallagher is going to get more of his offense in, which made a better match for that one. But they both come out of this looking really good. But really what sells you is the fact that both these guys have a ton of talent. Austin Aries is that veteran that's been around the world. Neville's a guy you just know has everything. So it's exciting. It's just a shame they put him in the worst spot that they could put him. I could think of probably 4 other matches I'd rather see on the pre-show.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this. Like Gary said, I've been to 3 WrestleManias. I went to 25, 28, and 32. For 28, I was walking around the arena looking at merchandise throughout most of the pre-show. To tell you the truth, I don't think I remember much of anything from it. And from 32, they were still trying to get in the building, and they were already halfway through Ryback and Kalisto by the time I found my seat. So there's problems with putting them on the pre-show, especially match length, because obviously they only have 2 hours. They like to spend a lot of that hyping up the show. And obviously with so many matches on the card, that could easily go an hour by itself, let alone, depending on who's on the panel, how much talking they decide to do. But I'm really worried that this match gets shortened to an unreasonable length, that it hurts it, so much so that they might only get 8 or 9 minutes as opposed to maybe the 12 to 15 they would have gotten if they were on the actual main card. And the other flip side of this, which we'll go ahead and talk about now, is that the Andre the Giant Battle Royal is going to be on the pre-show too. And to that extent, they have an over-the-top rope challenge between a bunch of guys. No one really wins, just because Braun shows up and starts kicking ass, and then him and Show sort of have a bit of a stare down and all this stuff. And basically, you get some more names from Raw thrown in here. A lot of jobbers, pretty much. The Shining Stars, for example, Primo and Epico, Curtis Axel, R-Truth, Goldust, some other guys like that, who you could picture being in there, Jinder Mahal. So, a lot of warm bodies, essentially, to throw in there for Braun and whoever else they're going to have in there to throw them out. Battle Royals ain't short, Gary.
No, they're not. Not at all. And, I mean, it should be fun. I think this Battle Royal is going to be like all the other rest of them. I don't think there's going to be anything super spectacular. They may have some surprises for us. We kind of talked about that at WrestleMania. Sometimes you'll get a big surprise, which I'm really looking forward to. Just like the regular Royal Rumble, right? Royal Rumble usually ends up being something you just get excited because you want to see those little nuggets that they have to offer you. But let's just be honest. For me personally, none of this did anything for me at all. I was just kind of like, okay, sure. And then I saw Braun Strowman, and I'm like, I love you. That's about it. Right. I just have nothing to go with it. So maybe they don't really care about selling that. They really don't need to sell it, right? I mean, it's not a big. It's a part of the show, but it's not a major part of the show. So I kind of get where they didn't really make it super spectacular, but it was ho hum.
Right, and I think it's pretty obviously written on the wall for the most part that Braun and Big Show are probably going to be your last two in there, and Braun is more than likely going to win. But I think they cast a lot of doubt on that with what they did with Sami Zayn this evening, who gets a lot of play. Sami says it's been a tough week. McFoley's gone. It feels weird around Raw without him. He says he wants to honor him. He wants into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and is going to dedicate his performance in there to Mick Foley. Stephanie shows up, says, Zayn, the only way you're going to get into that is if you win a no DQ match with Kevin Owens, and if you lose, you're fired, you're out the door. That brings us to a Kevin Owens promo, which is absolutely wonderful, by the way, talking about how Jericho was a guy he looked up to, but, when he got too close, obviously he realized a lot of the hype around him just wasn't true. Like, sort of a never meet your heroes approach, and he runs down the Jericho fans and all this other stuff. And then he says that he can't wait to be the guy that ends Sami Zayn's job, his career, all this 6 days away from WrestleMania. And then he promises to take Jericho's U.S. title, much like Jericho sort of took away the Universal title from him. And ultimately, the match at WrestleMania will be Jericho's demise. And then we get the big no DQ match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They brawl all over the arena. This is really good. I would say absolutely worth your time. Sami wins in about 12 minutes. Samoa Joe comes down, grabs a chair, looks like he's about to jump into the ring and attack him. And Jericho's music hits pretty soon afterwards. And Joe sits there for a long time at the ringside looking like a silly idiot before Jericho leaps the barricade and attacks him from behind. Hits him with the chair, distracts Owens. Zayn gets the quick roll-up that I'm sure would have made Sean super happy to see. And then Jericho gets into the ring, clears house with a chair, adds Kevin Owens to the list. And boy, I tell you what, Sami Zayn could come out of nowhere, obviously, to win that Battle Royal. And then they could reignite the feud with Braun if they want to. Or Braun wins that, and Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho might be certain. I'll say this for sure. It's in my top 3 most anticipated match for this weekend. Like, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be great.
It's definitely one of the ones I'm looking forward to as well. It really is. And remind me, I mean, Jericho's music played before he jumped the barricade, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, what I was sitting here thinking is, man, what in the world is Joe doing? Just standing. And then I thought to myself, maybe he just likes Jericho's music as much as I do. So maybe he's just kind of like sitting there, hold on. Yeah, just chilling out, taking it in, man. And that's what caused him to, get that chair across his head and all that. But, I think that overall, what they did here in the ring is fine. It makes sense. Of course, now Kevin Owens is super pissed because he lost in a distraction roll up against Zayn, one of his most heated rivals. And of course, Jericho comes in there, the superhero. The people, love this guy, and he gets to do the whole, you're on the list thing. I think overall it worked out pretty well. Besides the whole Joe standing in, for no reason. I think overall this worked out. It wasn't the strongest thing I think they probably could have done, but it worked. It got us to the next point, which is WrestleMania, and that's fine. I mean, I don't really hate it. It wasn't spectacular, though.
I agree with you that it doesn't necessarily add anything new, but I do think it keeps it hot going into that. I don't think they really lost any steam from this match, which I think is what you wanted, because this is probably, if I had to venture a guess, this is probably a lot of people's the match they're most excited for from the Raw portion of this card, simply just because there's so much history with Owens and Jericho already. These two, you're going to get a very good match. I don't want to say great because Jericho obviously isn't what he used to be anymore either. But there's a lot of ways to go with this coming out, and I think that's what's most exciting. If Owens wins, obviously, I think the point of having Sami win here is to position him in at least a position to where he can continue to challenge, much like he has so far since Finn Balor's injury and all these other things that have sort of kept him in the mix, at least at the top of the card, even though he's largely directionless and just sort of being... almost feels like he's being built into the new Daniel Bryan underdog story, right? With all the problems he has with Stephanie McMahon and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. You're totally right about that. I just want to say this. You're exactly right about that, and it's so funny to say because to me it's almost at times I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop where Sami Zayn is no longer around in that picture and he's somewhere in the lower middle card, somewhere just floundering, and yet they still keep him around. They still give him opportunities. Makes me so very happy he has those opportunities. I'm still very nervous, though, because you're right. Directionless is exactly the right definition of what we are seeing with Sami Zayn.
Right. And like I said, if he wins the Battle Royal, then great for that, too. But at least this feels like they do have something planned. There's a lot of talk about what they have planned for Braun going around, too, just how big and how much they want to do with him and whatever else, right? But I don't... Oh, yeah, I forgot the big thing. Okay, so Seth Rollins and Triple H have the big contract signing, and basically what it is Rollins needs to sign he's not going to hold WWE or Triple H liable for all the stuff they're going to do, and to do, obviously, with the contract signing, you get big promo time. So Seth comes out, and first Triple H comes out. Let's do this in order. He comes out, he says once Rollins signs... Triple H is going to tear him apart. He's going to do all these things. He gave Seth the world, and Seth failed, and he can't abide that because, he's obviously sold on this creator role. He doesn't want to be the guy he used to be. Same old from Triple H, even though he continues to, I think, deliver very well on these promos, is still incredibly hateable and all that good stuff. Rollins comes out and sort of changes his tune to where, yes, he wants revenge, but he needs to redeem himself. Obviously, he's been set back with the knee injury, Samoa Joe, all these other obstacles that Triple H has thrown at him since he cost him the Universal title back in August, and we've waited forever long to start capitalizing on this. Rollins signs the paper. Triple H kicks the table into Seth's knee and puts a beating on him, and before Rollins manages to fight back and sends him to the floor and hits him with a crutch and all these other things, right? Like I said, for how long they waited on this, and they've really only started heating this up in the last month, maybe even a couple of Raws before the last TakeOver back in January. I think they've done a really good job for how cold this was, and I'm actually kind of excited for this. I think obviously the unsanctioned fight thing, or whatever you want to call it, is pretty much just no DQ, and whether it actually ends with anything definitive or not, we'll never know until we actually watch it. But I'm actually kind of excited for this. This is something they've changed my opinion on, because for a while it just seemed like they were doing it to do it, and now they've done a very good job, I think, of working in all the problems that these two have for how cold it was coming into it.
Yeah, I think so too. And looking at this, I mean, I think that Triple H, like you just pointed out, Paul, always has that arrogance about him, that whole feel and demeanor that, hey, it's not hard to hate me, right? I'm the guy that, all of you kind of despise because of, what I've done in the past and who I am, the way I carry myself, all that stuff. And, Seth Rollins is that guy for a long time. I said to myself, I just don't know if I can see him as a babyface. He's been a heel for a while now. And, in the Shield, it really wasn't just solely about him. So I can't really say that he was a giant babyface, but in this, at least, in this contract signing, I can say this is probably one of the biggest babyface moments I've seen with him. Mm-hmm. The way he just opens up and says, I've done a lot of soul searching and things like that, and talks about, what's important to him. So I think it's really, honestly, a pretty decent contract signing. It's not boring. It's not terrible. I think they do a good job of focusing that, hey, you got the cerebral assassin in the ring with this guy. Of course he's going to focus on the knee, right? Of course he's going to do those kind of things to put Seth Rollins a little step further back as he's leading into the biggest match that they're going to have. So I think all this works. And is it super, super entertaining? Maybe not. But I think in the long run, it all has some cohesiveness, and it makes everything mean something heading into their match at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. I think the interesting thing about this is obviously the stipulation, and it leaves them open to do a lot. Obviously, you could have Samoa Joe run in. You could have maybe a Finn Balor return during this. You could have so many different things that you could tie into Raw the next night to really make you want to tune in again. But I think my biggest question here is Triple H has been in this role of putting over the younger guys on WrestleMania for 3 or 4 years now. You could go back even longer than that if you want to, when he was actually still a full-time wrestler. Do you think beating Triple H still means as much as it used to, or is it just sort of business as usual now,
Sadly, I kind of feel more like the business as usual, only because, it's that gap has been way too long. It really is. And yes, they're starting to pick up that heat, but it's not enough, right? Right. This is not, hot enough to where you can go swimming. This is just warm enough where you can go outside and not feel like you need a sweater. If I could use that. To be honest with you, it's the way I feel. You just, oh man, I really wanted to go jump in the pool, but now I'm walking out here, it's just, I'm going to freeze my butt off. I'm not even going to take the chance, but hey, it's just nice to be here. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's about this match is people are kind of glad that they're going to finally get to see this match. But I don't know if they're going to be super pumped for it. And I don't know if they've given us enough yet to say that we're going to be super pumped for it. I think it's a good setup for what they have, just not enough to get us to where we're like living and dying by every minute of the match.
Right. I'm sort of the same way with you. Like, I am excited for the match. I really am. Like I said, I think they've done a good job of giving you enough moments to at least feel like this feels big, this feels important. To that point, I think they succeeded with Triple H being in this, because obviously he's still the big, he is still Triple H, right? Whether beating him or not really means much anymore. I think it's important for the story that Seth does win here, obviously, because he very much needs a win to reestablish him at the top of the card coming out of all this. And if you want to keep going with Joe, or you have Finn show up, or whatever you decide to do during this, because I'm sure this is going to be a crazy overbooked mess, and I mean that in the best way possible. But I'm with you. Seth gets big face reactions when the big stuff happens. When he came back and tossed the crutch aside, I think at the end of this, when he was standing tall, really went a long way to getting fans behind him too, and at least making it feel like that. Yes, he's injured. Yes, he has all these problems coming into this, but he feels like somebody who can win, and I think that's what's really important here. Is a lot of the Raw matches, I feel like who's going to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goldberg's going to win, or no, you don't. Brock Lesnar's going to win. Excuse me. I think it's pretty obvious that Kevin Owens is going to be Chris Jericho, and even at this point, Seth Rollins, despite everything that's happened to him, is probably going to win too. But they've done a great job of making it feel like Triple H has the overwhelming advantage on him, and now it's starting to at least feel 50-50, right?
Yeah, you're right on that, and it is feeling more like that. And this stipulation involved is making it feel like the most equal playing field that we've seen.
Right.
And I say that because of the fact now going into this, you're not so focused on that leg of Seth Rollins. And going into it without that DQ stipulation, you do focus so much on it. You're saying, oh my God, it's just going to be, that's all they're going to do is work on the knee. Sure, they'll do that now, but now there could be a situation where maybe, Triple H is injured. But whether it be, a shoulder or some other part of his body is injured because, some of these hardcore items are used in the match. That makes these guys on the same playing field, and then there you go. You run from there and use all the other people that may get involved in the match. So, whatever. So I think it's a really good idea. I think overall that they're doing the right things they need to do with this. I'm still looking forward to the match. I just don't know if every move, every minute of this match is going to leave me on the edge of my seat. Maybe they can do that, and I'll be excited if they do. Please do that if you're listening. But if not, I will be disappointed.
Yeah. I think that's everything on this episode of Raw. I don't think there's much left for us to do, Gary, but put a number on it. So what's your rating?
Yeah, look at this as a go-home show into the biggest show of the year. I think they did a pretty decent job. I really do. I know I kind of, had some negative things to say, and I had a few things I was not a fan of. But overall, I want to say it this way. For the weakest divisions that we've been complaining about week in and week out on Raw, they did some positive things with them. And they really tried to put that next step forward, and they made you, at least pleased for this episode. So I'm going to give it a 7. I don't think it was overly great to give it an 8 or 9 or 10 or anything like that, but I think a 7 is right where I'm, because I think it was good enough to where it was entertaining for the most part through the entire show.
I will agree with you that for the most part, this is a very entertaining show. A lot of the matches that needed work, I think, got it. I'm looking specifically at the women's division match. I'm still a little miffed about the decision to put the Cruiserweight title on the pre-show. And for a lot of the big matches on Raw, I'm finding myself caring very little about them, looking at, obviously, the Universal title and Roman Reigns and The Undertaker. But everything else on here I think they did well with, especially Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. I felt like that was a high point of the show. The stuff with Sami Zayn, obviously, I felt like it was a high point too. Everything else either left me sort of ho-hum, nothing's really changed, my feelings haven't changed, or they sold me on something else. And I to that point, I feel like, and if this changed a lot of your other feelings too about anything going into this, then great. But for me, I think a 6.5 seems fair. They do a lot of great work. There's some fine wrestling on this show too, if you're looking for good wrestling this week, especially the main event. But overall, this isn't the worst go-home Raw I've ever seen in my life, but there have been better.
Yeah, you're right on that. So now we just, have a great chance to see how SmackDown works out, see if they can match what Raw did or do it better. Mm-hmm. And if you want to hear us review that, make sure you are always tuned in on W2Mnet.com, where you can get those podcasts, as well as, hey, if you're using iTunes or any other device, you can make sure you hit up Wrestling to the Max and go subscribe and rate and review as well while you're at it. And that'll give you all our great shows. And also, don't forget, SmackDown Live, but, also think about 205 Live as well as NXT. This week's NXT review we'll be the last one before we get to NXT TakeOver Orlando. So you don't want to forget, all these great shows leading up to the WrestleMania. They all matter. They're all exciting. You don't want to miss a minute of it. Also, don't forget to go check out our episode 240, Part 1. And, of course, later this week, Part 2, where we'll be doing our WrestleMania preview. That's right. If you want to hear us talk about everything WrestleMania, all our actual final predictions leading into that weekend, you make sure that you're available and listening to Part 2. Part 1, though, will have some little tidbits, too, so you want to listen to both of them. They're both going to be great shows this week. But, yeah, that's all we have for you tonight. We thank everybody for coming and checking us out. We will see you guys down the road, though. Until then, later.
Have a good night, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.